Hello, Tony Flores. First of all, I would like to congratulate you again on your recent job posting for being Alberta's first advocate. Um, I read what you are determined to advocate for and what you're willing to stand up for. But here's the thing, most people don't know a lot about disability, in particular things that aren't seen, such as ASD and ADHD, both of which I have. Um, the fact is that most people think that if you have a disability of sorts, that it should either be seen or more apparent, because people think you have to see it or hear it in order to be considered disabled. Well, here's the thing. I am on the invisible side of things where my disability, unless if you put me in a situation which brings on my issues, for the most part, it isn't seen. And this is where the community is so dead wrong and so not educated in disability. Fact is that with autism, it is called a spectrum disorder for many reasons, because what I have affects people in so many different ways and in so many different avenues that you don't know what program would be best to suit someone like me, let alone a community of us, because it affects so many of us so differently. Like, say one person might not be shy and but still have social issues such as I do. Doing this video is actually really hard for me to do, but I've gotten better because I've forced myself out of my comfort zones. The other part is that if I end up in a situation which is very highly stressful, like I have sensory issues that go along with it, my visual and as well as hearing are extra sensitive. And if I go into a mall or government places that have a lot of echo and a lot of noise, really busy, both senses are so bad that sometimes I can't even process all the information. It's like an instant overload on a computer with one too many instructions or windows that are open, and your brain, like a computer, will crash. And that's exactly essentially what happens to me. And sometimes when you have a meltdown, it's almost like looking through somebody else's eyes. You're you can fully see what's going on. You are aware that what is happening, but it's almost like you're looking through another person's eyes, and you have no control, and you're a totally different person. Some of us might be combative, some of us might be oppositional, defiant, some of us might just shut down quite literally and become nonverbal. For those of us that are not shy, I am not shy by any means, but I have social anxiety disorder. And for me to get into a crowd of people, I'm the first one looking at a dead plant trying to bring it back to life. The other part is, if the other side of it is like, if a person has issues like I have, but they most people would call them shy, but they're not shy. They're so uncomfortable in coming out of their comfort zone that it literally determines how they shop or how they live and how they do things. And that makes employment and work for us so much more difficult, because a lot of places expect you to deal well in groups, which most of us don't. And that's the problem that most people see, especially PDD. What we have for programs here in Edmonton deal in a funneling system where not only are you placed in a group full of people that might be of similar age groups, similar disabilities, but often, all too often, the disabilities are a lot more apparent and a lot more worse off than your own. And if you're high functioning like me, you don't want to be in a group like that, because it's just another reminder of what you have. And it only makes things worse for you, and it stresses you out to no end when you're trying to make yourself better. And what I would really love to see is programs to be more individualized. In other words, have the person be interviewed and assessed, but by not only PDD, but also by the company itself, like the program. If they have requirements for which deal with person's interest, person's diagnosis, and as well as where they're at and where they want to be in, say, X amount of time, like, say, a year, I would like to dearly have the tools necessary, if not a worker, with me on hand. It doesn't have to be 24/7, to help me with behavioral issues or social skills such as the invisible nuances that society throws in your face that you are blind to. For me, society is a huge monster in a sense, for which there are rules and certain ways to act and certain ways to be for which you are blind to. You are blind to the quick responses to people's what people say, or the gestures that people might give in response to what you're saying. Sometimes when one of us is extremely involved in something, or I guess you could say, is excited about something or very interested, they might come across as rude or different or angry because they are so excited. Like what happens for me when I talk about disability. This is one of my hobbies, actually. I actually am forever looking up illness and hobby and disability, especially in ADHD and ASD, because that's what I have. And I want to know absolutely everything about it. But when I get engaged by someone about what I have and what I know about it, I come out as rude and very angry, like, but I'm not angry. It's excitement. It's a passion for which is unlike anything that anyone can explain. It's, for me, like having a second marriage, I guess you can say. I have two loves. One is my husband. The other is my love for disability and wanting to know about it and wanting to help people become better or more than what society deems possible. Because I want to just make people's lives better. I've been a caregiver pretty much my whole entire life. It started when I was 15, when my mom came down with MS. I came from a very dysfunctional family, and I came from an era where you were either discarded as a kid for being different, or you were made fun of in school, or people just simply didn't understand you, so you were kind of on the outside of things. You were never really included. So that means that the social skills I should have been taught was not. And that's where programs should be facilitated in, because of the nature of autism, being that it affects people so differently and so broadly that there is no one perfect thing or box that we can all fit in, because it affects people so differently. And this is where people have to be educated and programs have to be individualized for us. And that's not happening. What I see is a little funnel system in programs for which you get placed in a room with people that are worse off than you, and then you go down the ranks and you end up in another system for which may not fit the category for which you need. I need a one-to-one hands-on person for which deals with real life and real life environments. Most places expect you to sit there and play T, even though you've been playing T your whole entire life, trying to pretend to be normal just so that you can be accepted in society. And even then, it doesn't work half the time. Trust me on this. I've been doing it for years. And that is why when I talk to people, sometimes it seems rude or that I'm angry or upset when I'm not. And telling me to calm down just makes it even worse, because I'm not angry or mad. I'm excited. I'm excited that somebody has engaged me in something that I love. And that is rare. For me, that is so rare when somebody actually takes the time to talk to me. And I thank you for that. And I just wanted you to understand that. That programs that we have right now here in Edmonton don't correlate for what I need. I need properly trained staff. What I have right now, as you know, is an HCA. HCA people, like caregivers, are trained only to help people that have physical limited mobility. In other words, if you cannot wipe your butt, that's what they do. If you need ROM, range of motion, like most people in chairs or mobility issue people may need, it is where they actually are the ones helping you exercise by lifting your leg or lifting your arm, that sort of thing. A properly trained person in disability, such as a course like the one at Bow Valley College called Disability Studies, deals with helping you learn about behavioral challenges or challenging behaviors. They also teach you about certain mental issues for which bring on these issues. They teach you how to deal with bringing the person out of whatever funk they're in, and teach you how to regulate your issues properly out in the real world. And then for those skills that are being taught, this could also translate into being able to work in group settings and or environments for which are noisy. I need hands-on. Like most of us, depending on the person, some of us do well with books. I don't. I am a visual, hands-on, audio learner in that order. So if I see it, do it, and hear it, it's all the more real for me. If it's written down, yes, I can read, but the words sometimes just don't add up in my mind. It's like when a person with dyslexia, I don't have dyslexia, I don't think, but it's kind of a form of it, I guess. I don't know. But when they see their R's backwards, it's a mental thing where your mind basically tricks your eyes into seeing those letters backwards or upside down. For me, it's like 1 + 1 = 10 when it actually equals 2. So for me to have things read out to me is actually when things actually stick. I cannot grasp reading too well. I can do short instructions, simple instructions, and it is easier for people to come down into my world than it is for me to go into theirs. I will never be a neurotypical. I will never think like an average 44-year-old woman that is talking to you on this video now. I am diagnosed emotionally at 16 years old. That means that I see my world through 16-year-old's eyes. I look at the world the same way. I rationalize my world that way. So therefore, emotionally, I am 16 with 44 years experience. That is 44 years of knowing and going through programs and special needs courses and whatever in order to be the person that you see for which is before you. Now, when it comes to programming, what I would dearly love to see is programs similar to the one that I came from in Lethbridge called Peak Vocational Services. They have hands-on environments for which help people like me on a one-to-one base in the real world. Because many of us are married, many of us have children, and many of us are quite functional. We just have issues in behavioral and as well as not being able to read or grasp social norms for which we need to be taught. If you don't know the rules, how do you emulate? How do you function? How do you find a job without getting nervous? For some of us, eye contact is really bad. And for me, this video, I'm having trouble trying to keep my eyes on the video. Never mind trying to look at you in person. Because sometimes eye contact for me is really tough. I am very vocal in what I do, and I am very passionate about advocating for people with disabilities, especially high function invisible disabilities for which you cannot see unless if you have the proper accreditations and or education that actually specializes in what I have. And therefore, this is where people have to be educated. Not all of us are going to be in a chair or have issues in health or whatever. As a matter of fact, a good many of us are very healthy people. Our issues are more up here, which means our cognitive differs from our IQ, which is what I'd also like to touch base on. In the PDD area, the PDD programming is coming to a head where they have to revamp everything. Now, here's a good idea. Back in the 90s, when a lot of programs were scrapped, a lot of programs like PEAK were very prevalent here in Alberta, all over. But when the government came along and basically said, we're going to scrap all these programs so that we can save money, it also changed a lot of lives for the worse. How I know is because I'm one of them. As much as I'm grandfathered into PDD, there is no program or resource that is educated enough or trained enough to deal with someone like me, because as much as I can say what is wrong with me and tell you exactly what I need and where I want to be, the workers that you may get are like the ones that I have, where you end up having to train an HCA how to do their job when it should be a disability skills coach, not an HCA. A disability skills coach who deals with behavioral issues, who deals with high function needs like mine, who deals with helping you with everyday life, like say if I was single, back in the day when I was single, I had workers for everything that I could possibly need, everything from vocational, which is behavioral, and as well as learning the nuances of society, right on down to shopping, to banking, to even living in a home, as in, like, if you're your own guardian, you could have your own place and have someone come in, or you could do a room share thing where you rent out someone's bedroom, or you live in their basement. And there they would teach you how to live in a home and take care of your home properly. There's also skills in cooking. All of these things are needed and could be transferred into any job. If you cannot take care of yourself or your home, how do you expect someone like me to take care of a job? That's the problem. The other problem that I see is that because we are forced to be in a funneling system, so to say, that means that we have to sit there and wait. Meanwhile, if you're in a situation like mine where your husband might make too much come next year, you stand to lose everything, as in all your AISH. What AISH is doing right now is basically they say you're making $1,500. No, that's a lie. It's your husband that's making the $1,500 plus, and you make $130 if you're lucky. That means that any couple that wants to move ahead or buy a house, they can't because they are too busy trying to struggle and stay alive. And that's not cool. If they are grandfathered into PDD, there is a little thing. There's no programs that are skilled enough to deal with people like me, because if you know how to talk and say what you need and blah, 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 then where do you fit on the scale of people with disabilities when the person might be only trained to deal with the more non-verbal sense, and those people are the ones that pretty much go with the flow because they have no choice. Whereas people like me, I don't deal with a lot of crap. I don't let people walk all over me, and I basically state how I feel, and I'm quite capable of being vocal about my needs. Frankly, when you're vocal like I am, it's even harder for people to grasp because they have no idea what to do with it. I mean, like, it's like, okay, what do I do with this person? I don't need to change them. I don't need to bath them. I don't need to exercise them. I don't need to baby talk to them. Fact is that we're the harder ones because nobody's trained. When all it takes is for them to have the proper education and the proper background in disability in order to deal with someone like me. Because I deal with the real life. I deal with everyday problems that an average married person deals with. Unfortunately, some of it I will never, ever be able to grasp, but I know what it does to me emotionally because I see what it does to my husband. Do you know what it's like to watch your significant other and look at them and see them struggle with bills? I may not understand the concept of money, but I know what it does to me emotionally. I know what it does to others emotionally, and the struggle is there just as much as it is for your partner watching you struggle. And this is where it is so wrong. There should be programs that are out there based on one's ability, age, as in cognitive and as well as chronological. It should also be based on someone's interest. Like, I've always wanted to work out in the field as a community coach, skills coach for people like me. Because before I was back on AISH, I did house cleaning for people that have high function needs. And every time I walked into a house, it was always like a clutter bug. I mean, like, it was almost as bad as, say, those hoarders. And that's because most of us don't know the norm of what is normal for a home. What we know is what we learned, or we got into some pretty serious bad habits and we just learned to keep everything because we don't know any different. We've forgotten. And when you have issues like mine, if you don't have someone to teach you those skills and reteach you, you forget. Well, they say if you don't use it, you lose it, right? Well, there's a lot of things I was taught when I was younger, but I haven't used it in so long that I've forgotten how to do it. And that is the problem, because I think that not only does your disability change with age, so does your abilities, so does your interests, so does your cognitive issues. So therefore, programs should also be geared to one's abilities and or the changes thereof. That means that if you're 20 and you're quite capable of doing a whole bunch of things, then you address the areas for which the person is weakest. If you're my age, your disability will change over time, same with your interest. Therefore, so should the programming change in accordance. Because like any illness or disability, it will change, and it will change either for the worse or for the better. Some things disappear, some things get better. It determines on where the person sits in life and their abilities, both cognitive and as well as able-bodied, as in their abilities concerning their bodies. Like for me, at 20, I had no health issues, none whatsoever. I didn't even have asthma. But as I got older, I fell into the wrong crowd, I started smoking, asthma developed, I moved to Alberta, and I'm allergic to Alberta now. I am 44 years old, I've been in Alberta for 20 years, and now I suddenly have lower back issues and a bad wrist and a bad knee. So this means that I cannot do any more house cleaning for much longer. I cannot lift a lot of things due to my lower back and my knee. My asthma, if I should do anything strenuous like running, consider me very breathless. But if I do things that are relaxed, I'm fine. I love one-on-one environments, so I would do well in a one-to-one environment. That's why I say I would do well out in the community, helping people like me. But I myself also need skills, for which would make me a better worker. But at the same time, and the same token, this is as a result of me looking things up about disability, teaching myself, because I have a very inquisitive nature. I don't sit there and accept what comes along because I know it can be better for all of us. PDD has also this little thing called an IQ test. How does IQ have anything to do with cognitive? They're two totally different hemispheres of the brain. They say Albert Einstein had autism. Guess what? He was smart as a whip, but I bet you anything, his cognitive age differed from his IQ, such as it does for so many of us. If I'm diagnosed emotionally at 16, but in some cases I have the IQ of an average 44-year-old, that means that I'm smart in many areas, but my emotional status is that of a child. Now, here's a question for you. Just because a person is normal looking, does that constitute that they should also have the ability to live like everyone else? I don't think so. Here's the thing. By looking at your pictures, I would guess you have a child between probably 10 to 16. In other words, you're about my age, give or take. I bet you probably have a neurotypical child, in other words, one without any form of diagnosis. They are very smart, and they act like an average teenager. Can you imagine your daughter being 16 for the rest of her life mentally? Can you imagine your daughter living on her own without supports? Can you imagine your daughter being able to function and succeed in a society for which she is blind to? If the answer is no to any one of these questions, then why does the government do this to us? It is not right. You should never, ever leave a child unattended if they're under 18. Or at least that's my givings. But because I look normal, and because I'm able to function almost on a normal base in society and do my home and take care of myself to a certain extent, society deems that I am quite capable of living on my own. Well, yes, I can live on my own. Yes, I understand marriage. And yes, I understand relationships. But I can't get a freaking job because of my mental capacity, for which results in behavioral issues. If I do get a job, it lasts less than 2 weeks because people put too much on my plate, and then I have a meltdown for which I do not control or have no idea to control. I have no soft skills. I have no diplomacy, and I sure as heck have no tact. Yes, I am blunt. Yes, I come across rude. But I don't mean to. And this is the problem I have. Like so many of us, we need these skills, as what society deems as soft skills, to be taught to us daily. These are areas of which my brain will not ever be able to rewire itself and comprehend very well. This is where workers come in and basically not only act as your advocates, but they also act as your teacher and as well as the employer's teacher. Because what employers do nowadays, they push your disability into your face. They make your life and your disability the barrier by pushing your issues onto you, by stating that because you have what you have, you are now considered a liability. It's just another freaking excuse of how to not hire somebody in a legal sense, because in my view, any word that starts with the word lie is just another legal term that they are allowed to lie about your issues, or lie as to why you got laid off, or lie as to what makes you unemployable. When fact is, you could be employable if the word acceptance, tolerance came into play There is no acceptance or tolerance in the employment area. There is no education, no properly trained staff. Years ago, Grant McEwen had the course, Disability Studies. But it's gone now. Now, I have to rely on my wits. I have to fight for my next piece of bread when I shouldn't have to. The struggles are real. And my story is no different than what everyone else is saying that has my issue. High function needs that are invisible to society. And we need help. We need properly trained staff, programming that fits the bill for which we need. No employment program helps people like us because they don't understand. They don't have the education. They don't have the ability to understand, and they don't care enough. They bring out promises and never follow through. And agencies are tied, and they can only go so far. As much as I love Wild Rose, they are a company that primarily deals with more issues that are more severe than me. That means that they are adapted for those that have physical or more mental issues for which will never leave a group home or home, period. Either that or they will need 24-hour staff. This needs to change. And so should community in education, and as well as proper works for people or programs for people like me. I do not want to be stuck in a room full of people that are worse off than me because what I have, I don't need to be reminded. I'm fully aware of what I have. And many people feel the same way when they have issues like my own. Bring on disability trained staff, not HCA. People that are trained to work in the field for which deals with cognitive neurological conditions that are high functioning and invisible. Not all issues are seen. And tell the government that if they expect a better way of dealing with people like me, then maybe they should also have a representative that walks and talks just like me to represent all invisible disabilities, not just seen. Because what I see is that people only see a person in a wheelchair representing all disabilities. They see the chair, they don't see you. Just like when they see me, they see a normal person. They don't see my disability. We need proper representation upon the government in order to stand up for those like me. And I would dearly love to stand with you as a representative of my community. Maybe together we can work together and bring on a whole new era for which children, once they get out of FSCD and turn 18, don't get denied AISH, don't get denied PDD, and get the services that they need. ABA and IBI can easily be transformed, which is a behavioral thing for which kids get through means of play acting, group therapy for children with high function needs and or invisible disabilities, such as I have. Those things can easily be transformed to work for adults. I mean, if in the States and Europe they do this for kids through teenage to 18, why not carry it on through the person's lifespan? Because certain neurons, certain parts of my brain will never develop. My brain matured emotionally at 16. So therefore, why would you deny me this service? It is injustice, it is wrong, and I'm tired of the bigotry and the um, lack of education that society has towards people like me, because it makes my life hell when I have to try and find a job and I never get hired because of what I have. Or be let go because people don't understand. I've actually been laid off for being too thorough. I have to be too thorough in order to get the job done correctly. If I don't, and people expect me to rush or hurry, then that's where mistakes are made. I cannot discern why people would do a half job in any situation when they should do the best that they can. I don't do half jobs. I do jobs to the best of my ability. And if I see that there's something more that can be done, I will do it. Even if the person said, just do this. Because it does not make sense to me to cut corners. And I would dearly love to speak for my community, my end of the world, where issues like mine are invisible and not seen. I want to bring in better programming for people like me. I want to end PDD's IQ test forever so that kids never ever have to walk my path or struggle. I never ever want to see I want to see more adults get the help that they need. I don't need a psych. I don't need a counselor. I'm not a head case. I'm a human being. I have feelings, I have dreams, and I have goals. But I need help to get there. If you say you represent disability, then help me represent all of us. Because we've been ignored for over 30 years. It's time to end it. It's time to step up to the plate as government and fix the mistakes and bring Edmonton to the forefront of disability, for which all disabilities are addressed. Right now, yes, as much as Inclusion Alberta got a grant for vocational programming, it's still made for those under 25 because what they got is barely pittance to support the whole community. If you want to support someplace, you do the whole community, not those that are under 25. There's people like me who still have 30 years on them. That is good. To help people or become better people. But how do you become better if there is no help? I refuse to take medications for ASD, but I will take medication for ADHD because I have a clutter mind if I don't. As a matter of fact, I am medicated. I am against the use of drugs to children unless if they absolutely need it. That child will grow. But in order for them to grow, they have to be taught. And that teaching has to be lifelong. So programs and such should also change with that child or that person to make someone better. Do you not help them to become better as a role model, as an advocate, a teacher? This is what our community needs. And without it, there's too many of us that are falling through the cracks. You want to make a better world? I just told you how to make my world better, and so many others. Individualized programming works because I came from it. I wouldn't be married. I wouldn't be driving. I wouldn't be doing all the things that I do that so many people said I was too handicapped for. Here's the thing. You don't know what you can do unless if you try. And I'm one of those ones that has the mind of, you think I can't? Watch me do it. And I will keep on bonking my head against brick walls to learn one simple task. I will always adapt, and I will always find new ways to do things in order to excel and succeed in life. And this is what I always have to do, is fight for what I need. I shouldn't have to fight, but life has turned my issues into a barrier, so therefore I have to fight. Because society gave me no choice. Therefore, I'm speaking to you. Now, in all of this, I also truly think that if there was a person with both seen and invisible disabilities on the government, then not only does society get educated, but perhaps better programming, better funding, better resources, all of those could come into play again. Programs like Peak Vocational Services in Lethbridge. Perfect environment for someone like me, because they deal with one-to-one. They don't put you in a little tiny room and expect you to go through the funneling program when you don't do well in groups to begin with, especially those that have less functional capabilities. I don't want to be in a group like that unless I'm teaching them. Call it what you will. I'm a little bit stubborn, I'm old, and my mind is a little bit fixed in that area. So for me to learn something, either put me in a group of like-minded individuals and or people of similar age groups with similar issues. High function and invisible needs. In other words, people that face the same barriers as I do. The lack of education, the lack of everything, including bigotry and programs and services, because what I have right now does not match what I need whatsoever. What I need is in Lethbridge, and moving is not an option. So the next best option is for Edmonton to pull up its little girly panties and bring it north. Send someone to freaking Lethbridge and learn about Peak. Learn what they do. Study the bloody course at Bow Valley, if not bring it to Grant McEwen or wherever. And develop a flippin' program, and I'd be more than willing to be a guinea pig for it. Then on top of that, how about instead of just studying children with ASD and ADHD, why not also study all ages of disability? I'll be a guinea pig for that too. I don't mind. I can talk until I'm blue in the face about what I have because I own what I have. I was born with what I have. Just because people say you have childhood ADHD or autism, or adult ADHD or autism, guess what? You're born with it. Whether you're a child or not. Yes, in girls, the diagnoses for ADHD and autism are both considered a male thing. A male diagnosis. Here's the thing, girls are born with it too. We just know how to hide it better. Because girls are taught to assimilate. Guys are taught to be rambunctious little turds. So they're allowed to be whoever they want to be. They're allowed to be a little, well, for lack of better words, body parts. Women are supposed to be the caretakers and assimilate, and when they cry, they're just being emotional. No. I have a meltdown because the emotions are too much. Do you know what it's like to have every black emotion coming at you? I do. When I go into a mall, I sense every single person's emotions to the point that mine get drowned out. So if I go into an airport and it's nothing but negative, stressful emotions, that means that those emotions turn into a big big old black hairy monster coming at me at Mach 10. And then, oh, guess what? I have a sudden meltdown. I cannot be corralled because people get into my space. I'm forever at a grocery store in a lineup telling people, can you give me at least 2 feet of room because of my issues? Unfortunate for me. But luckily for me, I say it polite enough that people get it. Quite often, if a person gets into a space of someone who doesn't have any social skills, yeah, it can come out quite rude. And if you have that little emotional monster coming at you at Mach 10, guess what? You have 2 choices: be rude or have a meltdown right in front of the store. And that is embarrassing. I've had that happen to me, and I hate it. Having that monster coming at you is so debilitating that you can't move, you can't think, you can't talk, you can't do much. All you can do is look for the nearest exit or hope that people don't see that monster, because a meltdown you can't control, much like the behavioral issues for which a person is born with when you have what I have. You cannot change what you have. What you can change is how to deal with it and learn better tools. But you cannot learn those tools without having the proper staff. Without having the proper staff, how do you learn to control things yourself? This is where IBI, proper educated staff in disability, not HCA, are able to help you on all of those. And then you have loving people in your life to basically assist in that area for which you need help in. Because if you don't have a filter or diplomacy or anything like that, how do you know what is acceptable and what isn't? How do you know what is good, what is bad? That's like expecting your 16-year-old child to live on their own without knowing those parameters, without having certain structures in her life to lead her, to guide her. Without these structures for the rest of my life, how do I get a job? Because I'm blind to society. This is where our province has gone wrong on so many levels. They should look to other parts of our province. That's why I say Peak Vocational Services in Lethbridge. Perfect prime vocational programming that deals one-to-one with people like me. There are others very similar to that. PACE in Winnipeg is another one. Very good program. I've never been to it, but what I've read up on it, very appealing to me. There's several in BC, Southern Part, that I know of. As community living on in BC, what they do. The autism in Vancouver, Autism Canucks, I bet you anything, they can lead you to their vocational programs. There is so much going on in our country that most people don't even realize that could help so many, and that so many of our programs could easily adopt. But they're blind to because they are too uneducated and too lazy to look up these services to make their own programming better. I'm not saying invent a new program. I'm saying adopt other programs, styles for which would help benefit those like me. When you benefit a whole community, you not only offer them a future and hope, but you also get them off AISH. You get them to become more independent. You give them the skills they need to succeed. We used to have those skills all over those programs, all over Alberta. But our government said, I'm sorry, but we're going to have to scrap these programs. You know what? For every cut that has happened in the last 30 years, the first ones to be cut are the ones to disability and seniors. Those are the top ones. So people like me end up paying the price. And then education and health suffer next. Again, people like me, because there's kids in schools. Integration and inclusion do not include those my age or with my issues. Unless if you're a child, have seen issues, or have more apparent issues. In other words, if you can hear it, or if you can see it, as in if a person has a cane that says I'm blind, or a dog. I'm allergic to dogs, so what am I going to do? Walk around with a seeing eye cane? How stupid is that? When I can see just fine. I can walk just fine. Mine are of the emotional behavioral factor. I will be indicative of a 16-year-old child for the rest of my life, unless if certain hereditary factors fall into place, such as it always does as a person ages, such as dementia or Alzheimer's. Both very high in my family. Guess what? Yay me, my mind gets worse if I get that. If I go into a home, there is no nurse and no doctor that understands ASD or ADHD because no one is trained. When I took the HCA program in Norquest, which I also failed because they placed me in a whole entire room, and that's a whole entire aspect that I also wish to talk to you about another video. But when I went to Norquest, what I noticed is that because of what I had, and I was freshly diagnosed at the time with ADHD, not ASD, that they had very little patience or understanding. Do you know what it said in the book in black and white, plain as day? And I argued with the teacher and nearly failed the course for it. They basically said that, if I remember, quote unquote, that all disabilities are caused by drugs or alcohol. My brother was born on the side of a mountain to a 17-year-old girl, or 18-year-old girl, my mother. I was born to a mother that was between 16 and 17. During the hippie era, they were health nuts. They lived on the side of a mountain. They were hippies. They would sooner hug a tree than hug a drug. What I have is genetic. If you look in my family, there is people in my family that have some form of disability or another. You know what? What I have is genetic. Not caused from drugs or drinking. This has to stop. The education when it comes to disabilities like mine is dead wrong. FASD is caused by drugs and alcohol, not ASD or ADHD or many other illnesses or disabilities. FASD can be avoided. ADHD and autism cannot, along with most other disabilities. These books have to be rewritten. People need to be educated. And the best ones to educate people like you are people like me. I thank you for allowing me to talk. I'm better in video or in person. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope you get a chance to see this. Thanks.